The degree of animosity between Kirk Frost and Rasheeda has just increased, and fans are going out of control. Kirk's shocking announcement that he is flatly refusing to take Rasheeda's baby has everyone talking, just when we thought things couldn't get any stranger. Yes, the drama is developing in the most startling way imaginable as Kirk maintains his position and asserts that the child is not his. Speculation erupted with the emergence of rumors about Rasheeda's purported contact with another guy, but none anticipated Kirk would take things this far. In addition to privately doubting things, he is also making audacious claims, separating from Rasheeda and making it very evident that the child is not his. And believe me when I say that his response is creating a huge commotion and separating their fan base and family more than ever. However, what precisely brought about this moment? Has Rasheeda made any admissions? Or is Kirk merely seeking a means of ending this relationship? This scenario is rapidly getting out of control as charges are being made, heated arguments are breaking out, and startling disclosures are emerging. You will be stunned by the information we are about to reveal, so stay tuned. After weeks of mounting tension, the Frost household finally erupted into a full-fledged conflict tonight. With his arms folded tightly across his chest and his jaw clenched, Kirk Frost perched on the edge of the couch and gazed at Rasheeda in utter shock. Unspoken allegations pervaded their relationship, and Kirk refused to be placated no matter how many times Rasheeda tried to reassure him. With her voice shaking with annoyance, Rasheeda yelled, "Kirk, I don't know why you keep looking at me like that." Although she was making an effort to remain calm, the stress was getting to her. "You're behaving as though I did something wrong, but all I've done is attempt to keep this family together." Rasheeda felt sick to her stomach as Kirk laughed dryly and without humor. She never fell in love with this man. Instead, he was tougher, colder, and more aloof than before. Relatives? Do you want to discuss family now? Are you serious, Rasheeda? Anger that had been smoldering just below the surface clouded his eyes. "You've been hiding something from me, and now you want me to pretend that nothing is wrong. No, I am unable to do that. Not now." Rasheeda felt her heart race. She understood exactly what Kirk was discussing. She had been attempting damage control ever since the rumors of her suspected contact with another man began to circulate, but the whispers continued to get louder. Kirk seemed more aloof the more she attempted to soothe him. In actuality, though, Kirk had already decided. Nothing she said seemed to repair the broken trust he had in her. "Anything you want to say," he said in a harsh, low voice, his eyes never leaving hers. "However, that infant, I don't own that." Rasheeda felt as though she had been slapped across the face by those remarks. For a time, she was unable to even think of a way to reply since her breath was stuck in her throat. She was unable to breathe due to the pressure of his allegation on her chest. Was that what he thought? After everything they had endured? Was he now turning this around on her after years of repairing their marriage? The ups and downs, and the adultery scandals that Kirk himself had caused. "You have no right to say that," she eventually choked out, her voice trembling with shock and rage. "You dare?" Kirk was not going back down. "Yes, I dare. I'm sick of being the idiot, Rasheeda, so I dare. I am aware of what has been happening. I've noticed how you've been slinking away and answering calls when you believe I'm not listening. You expect me to think that's my child when I know deep down that something ain't right?" he said, his eyes narrowing. Rasheeda's anger made her whole body quake. This was her husband, the man who had repeatedly betrayed her, the man she had supported when the world turned against him, and the man she had forgiven for his adultery. And he was accusing her of infidelity now. She felt sickened by the irony of it all. "You believe you know." With each word, her voice rose as she spat. "Kirk, what on earth do you know? What? What evidence do you possess? You simply make assumptions based on people's verbal exchanges." She tried not to cry in front of him, and her chest heaved with every breath. But maintaining composure was becoming more and more difficult. With a short exhale, Kirk rubbed his hand over his face, as though he was trying to prevent himself from going absolutely crazy. The incessant arguments, the restless nights, and the doubts that tore at him every time he glanced at Rasheeda had left him exhausted. Rasheeda, do you really believe I don't feel it? When things doesn't add up, a man can tell. Additionally, this doesn't add up. Rasheeda's eyes were burning with tears, but she would not let them go. She had no intention of breaking in front of him or anybody else. Even when it felt like her world was collapsing, she had always been the one with the strength to keep everything together. She shook her head and murmured, "I can't believe you. This is how you treat me after everything we've been through, after all the times you made a mistake and I still supported you. You simply, what? Get rid of me like garbage? Do you think I'm lying? Do you think I'm unfaithful?" Kirk was silent for a considerable amount of time. His face was unreadable as he sat there and stared at her. Rasheeda was about to soften when he struck her with the most agonizing words she had ever heard. "I have never asked questions about your children before," he stated icily, his voice devoid of feeling. "However, this one, I don't own this one." That was it. That was the tipping point. Before she could stop herself, Rasheeda grabbed the closest throw pillow and threw it at him with all her strength after feeling something inside her shatter. "You are a jerk," she let out a scream. "You're not worthy of me. You're not worthy of this family." Kirk easily avoided the cushion, his face unaltered. "Perhaps I don't," he said to himself. "Perhaps I never did." There was a tense silence in the room as they stood on the brink of something they couldn't figure out how to mend, both of them breathing heavily. Their previous love looked far away, as if it had existed in another era or era. Kirk then dropped another surprise as Rasheeda was ready to leave the room. His voice was strong and firm as he stated, "I want a paternity test. And I'm not making any claims until I have those results." Rasheeda's breathing became labored. A test for paternity? Was he telling the truth? Did he truly believe she had cheated on him? Was this where they ended up? After all the years of devotion, after all the times she had forgiven him for his transgressions. She said in a barely audible whisper, "Kirk, you can't be serious." The ground seemed to have been yanked out from beneath her. Although she never really thought it would happen, she had always dreaded that Kirk's uncertainties and fears would eventually drive them to this point. And here they were now. But she could tell everything she needed to know from the expression in his eyes. He was serious, I see. And things would never be the same in their marriage. The weight of everything made Rasheeda's body tremble as she turned away from him. She was unable to look at him any longer, even though she could feel his eyes burning into her. Not in this manner. There was nothing she could do to stop the collapse of what they had created. Rasheeda's heart pounded against her ribs as she stood motionless. She was shocked by what she had just heard. A test for paternity? Kirk was genuinely doubting the authenticity of her child after all these years and everything they had been through together. Breathing became nearly impossible as the weight of his words sank like a stone deep in her chest. She turned back to him slowly, her face a mixture of anger and grief. "Kirk, are you sure you want to go there? Really? You have the audacity to question me after all the filth you've caused and the times you've stepped out on me?" Kirk let out a quick exhale and wiped his face in exasperation. "Stop playing tricks on me, Rasheeda. This is about the now, not the history. And I have my doubts about the present." She tightened her hands into fists at her sides, saying, "I got real, serious doubts. If you're unsure, guess what? When you had a whole damn baby behind my back, I had my concerns too, but did I leave or accuse anyone? No." Kirk groaned and shook his head. "I stayed. I worked through it because I believed in us, because I believed in you. And this is what I get in return. Don't pretend that I didn't pay for my mistakes, Rasheeda. You reminded me of that every day, and when you did stay, you never let me forget it." Rasheeda's eyes filled with tears, but she won't let them go. Now that the shoe is on the other foot, and you can't take it. "This has nothing to do with my inability to handle it, Kirk. You still see me as the same girl from back in the day, but I've grown up, Kirk, and I've changed. This is about your lack of trust in me, and I suppose my biggest error was assuming you did as well." Kirk sneered, rubbing his beard. "Yeah? Perhaps my biggest error was assuming you would always be honest with me." Rasheeda laughed resentfully. "You want real? All right, let's be honest. This baby isn't the main issue here. Rather, it's that you've been searching for a reason to distance yourself from me and have been waiting for something like this to end this marriage without coming across as the villain. Kirk's jaw tensed, and he remained silent for a while. Perhaps in her heart, she was correct. Perhaps he had been trying to find a way out. Their marriage had been troubled for some time, and this circumstance only made things more complicated. But now that his instinct was telling him something wasn't right, he couldn't give up. He finally added, "I'm not trying to push you away, Rasheeda," in a softer tone. With her eyes burning with emotion, she stepped closer and said, "But I'm not gonna be played either. So that's what you think? That I'm playing you? That I'm just out here making you look like a damn fool?" Kirk looked at her. "I think I need answers, and until I get them, I can't be 100 with you." Not anymore. Rasheeda's entire body tensed. Kirk could be stubborn, she knew, with this. This was freezing like never before. Furthermore, it was more painful than she wanted to acknowledge. Her voice was hardly audible above a whisper when she said, "So what now, Kirk? Do you want to leave? Do you want to pack your bags? Because what are we even doing here if you truly think this baby isn't yours?" Kirk sighed, averting his gaze for a second before re-engaging with her. Firmly, "I'm staying," he declared. "But until I'm positive, I'm not playing daddy." Rasheeda felt a surge of rage come over her. "You're staying? Kirk, this is our house, not some hotel where you can come and go as you want." "Then prove it," Kirk retorted. "And that baby ain't just some question mark you get to ignore until it fits your damn narrative. Take the darn test if you're that certain." Rasheeda looked at him incredulously as her lips opened and a quick gasp escaped. "What do you know? It's fine." Kirk didn't flinch. "You want a test? You got it. But when the results show you're wrong, I swear to God, Kirk, you're going to regret ever doubting me. We'll see." The house was a battleground for the next few days. They hardly exchanged words or even glanced at one another. Even their friends could tell something was wrong because of how thick the tension was. Rasheeda was originally called by Carly Red. "Tell me that's not true, girl. I heard Kirk remark recklessly at the studio that he doesn't think the baby is his. What the devil is going on?" Rasheeda let out a harsh sigh while holding the phone tightly. "Oh, it's true. This man had the audacity to question me, Carly. I'm the one being questioned after all these years of his mess." After a little period of silence, Carly gave a loud, eloquent gasp. "Oh my God, no. Rasheeda, you're not a jerk. You have to check him out. He had better respect your name, you his wife." "I told him already," Rasheeda murmured as she paced the living room. "I consented to the exam. But it's not even about that anymore, Carly. He doesn't trust me, and I'm not sure if I can forgive that. It's about the concept." In the meantime, Kirk was talking to Scrappy on his own. "Bro, I ain't trying to be that dude," Scrappy grunted. Kirk exhaled and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "But are you sure about this? You really think she would do you like that?" he asked. "I want to believe her, Scrap. But something ain't sitting right, and I ain't about to be out here raising another man's kid like a damn fool." Scrappy crossed his arms and leaned back. "Man, I hear you. But you gotta ask yourself, if you wrong, you ready to deal with the fallout?" Kirk didn't respond. He felt in his heart that he might lose Rasheeda forever if he was mistaken and had doubted her for no reason. Neither of them anticipated how quickly the exam day arrived. Both of them were so absorbed in their own thoughts that they hardly spoke on the drive to the clinic. Kirk tapped his foot nervously against the floor as Rasheeda sat with her arms crossed and gazed out the window. "Last chance to back out," Rasheeda said as they arrived at the parking lot. Although she spoke calmly, there was an unsaid challenge burning in her eyes. Kirk gave a head shake. "No." The quiet between them was overwhelming as they entered. "We are doing this." They had no idea what the outcome would be, but they were both aware that their relationship would never be the same again. The uncomfortable combination of antiseptic and frigid air that pervaded the facility further exacerbated their discomfort. In the waiting room, Rasheeda sat rigidly with her nails pressing into her flesh and her arms folded tightly across her chest. With a fixed expression, Kirk sat next to her, his leg jumping nervously. The quiet shouted louder than any argument they had ever had, even though neither of them said anything. Rasheeda got up first, her actions precise and deliberate, when the nurse finally announced their names. Kirk trailed behind, maintaining a close distance, as though he was worried that the air between them could blow up. A doctor was waiting in a private room, which the nurse escorted them into. He was an elderly man with a professional yet sympathetic countenance. His gaze darted between them as if he could feel the battle simmering beneath their skin. The doctor said, "So, we're here for a paternity test," in a neutral tone. "Yeah," Kirk answered in a rough voice. Rasheeda sharply exhaled through her nostrils, but she remained silent. "We need answers." The physician put on a pair of gloves and nodded. "All right, it's easy. We'll collect a sample from the baby and a cheek swab from each of you. The results should be available in a few days." Rasheeda's jaw tightened. A few days. That meant spending a few more nights in this torment, sleeping next to a man who believed she was lying, and acting as though nothing was wrong when their marriage was actually in ruins. The actual test just took a few minutes. The physician collected the swabs, labeled them, and promised to expedite the results. Then it was over in an instant. But what about the harm? That would be far more durable. The journey home was as quiet as the one there. Rasheeda gazed out the window, and her reflection appeared as worn out as she was. Kirk's knuckles were white as he held on to the driving wheel. Rasheeda lost control as they finally turned into the driveway. She said, "You better hope you're right," her voice tinged with a deep rage that was like a dagger to the breast. Kirk rubbed his temple and moaned. "Rasheeda." "No," she said sharply, looking at him. "You made a decision. Since you made the decision to doubt me, you had better hope that you were mistaken." She laughed harshly and shook her head. "Me and you? We're done." Kirk winced, feeling the force of her words. She sneered and threw open the car door, saying, "Rasheeda, don't do that." She slammed the door behind her and rushed inside, saying, "I ain't doing anything, Kirk. You did this." Things only got worse over the course of the following few days. The household tension was intolerable. Rasheeda only interacted with Kirk when it was absolutely necessary. When she wasn't in their bedroom, she was rocking the baby to sleep in his room while softly assuring him that everything would be all right. In contrast, Kirk felt imprisoned in his own house. While the doubt continued to chew at the back of his mind, the guilt was eating him alive. He went to the studio in an attempt to divert his attention, but he was unable to get away even there. The word had gotten out. "What on earth are you doing, man?" Leaning against the mixing board, Stevie G shook his head and asked, "A paternity test? For your own wife?" Kirk rubbed his face and let out a deep breath. "Dude, you don't understand." "Yeah, I understand," Stevie retorted. "Rasheeda isn't a groupie guy. You're acting as though you don't know the woman you married. You're treating her like a random street girl after she held you down." Kirk clenched his jaw. "I simply had to confirm." Stevie raised an eyebrow and said, "Yeah? And what happens when those findings come back and prove you wrong? Are you prepared to handle that fallout?" Kirk remained silent, for he secretly doubted that he was. Rasheeda, meanwhile, was navigating her own storm. In an attempt to deal with the matter in private, she had kept silent about it. Carly, however, had a large mouth. Social media was ablaze in a matter of days. After everything he did, Kirk is questioning Rasheeda's child? The disrespect is insane. Kirk Frost is popular. Rasheeda needs to give up his ass. And not in a positive sense. The reaction was harsh and quick. The fans were incensed. Those who had previously stood up for Kirk were now ruthlessly pulling him. Rasheeda's stomach twisted as she watched the mayhem unfold on her phone. This was something she detested. She detested the fact that the world might judge their business. But above all, she detested the fact that Kirk had first placed them in this predicament. Things had boiled over by the time the findings were available. Rasheeda finally snapped the night before they were meant to receive the call. She murmured, "You ruined us," as Kirk sat on the edge of the bed and she stood in their bedroom doorway. His expression was impenetrable as he gazed up at her. "You ruined us," she said again, her voice trembling. "Rasheeda." Kirk gulped hard and said, "I don't even know if I can ever look at you the same way again." "Baby, listen." She wiped away a tear and laughed sharply. "Hey, baby. Oh, I'm a baby now. Do you want to act like the devoted husband now?" Kirk got up and moved in her direction, but she retreated. "Don't," she cautioned. The phone rang the following morning. "Don't you dare act like you care now. You made your choice, Kirk. You gotta live with it now." The phone was positioned between Kirk and Rasheeda like a ticking time bomb as they sat across from one another at the kitchen table. After hesitating, Kirk responded, "Yeah." The professional, quiet voice on the other end said. The room appeared to contract as they declared, "We have your results." With a dry voice, Kirk asked, "And?" There was a pause. Following that, "The test confirms that you are indeed the biological father." Silence. The air in the room has been pulled out, Kirk thought. Rasheeda only looked at him, her face expressionless. The call was disconnected. For a while, they were quiet. And then, "Are you happy now, Rasheeda?" Kirk opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He was wrong. He had questioned his own wife and his own family, but why? "Rasheeda, She got up and interrupted, saying, "No. You broke us, Kirk. Right now." She shook her head and spoke in agony. It broke Kirk's heart to say, "Now I don't think we can ever be fixed." He was contemplating for the first time in his life that he might have lost the best thing that had ever happened to him. Kirk sat still, his heart hammering in his chest. The truth had come out. Rasheeda had not lied to him, she had not betrayed him, and she had certainly done nothing to deserve the shame he had brought upon her. And now, she couldn't even look at him anymore since she was in so much pain. Rasheeda had already turned away before he could say anything. She wasn't giving him an opportunity to make amends at the moment. Maybe never. She walked slowly and with heavy steps upstairs. Although he knew deep down that it was no longer his place, Kirk felt driven to follow her and give her a hug. He was to blame for this catastrophe. Now he had to face it. The next few days were unbearable. He didn't hear much from Rasheeda. When she did, her voice sounded hurried and impersonal, as though she were addressing a business associate instead of her spouse. She went about the home quietly, seeing to the baby, answering the phone, and keeping herself busy. Unless it was absolutely necessary, she didn't acknowledge Kirk's presence or ask for his help. Kirk, too? Kirk was overcome with regret. Every time he glanced at her, he could feel the pain in her eyes. Every time she passed him, it was like a knife piercing his chest. He had been wrong, a fool, which is the worst. He didn't think he would ever figure this out. It wasn't any better outside their house. As soon as Kirk's reservations were made public, social media exploded. Rasheeda should have ended their relationship sooner since Kirk Frost just demonstrated his worthlessness. Fans weren't the only ones incensed. A married man accusing his wife of having a child with another man. It's insane how disrespectful they are. Rasheeda is stronger than me because, baby, I would have had that divorce lawyer on speed dial. Even their closest friends called them. Bambi didn't hold back. "I don't know why you're even still there, Rasheeda," she had said bluntly on FaceTime. "This isn't love. This is disrespectful." Carly Red, who frequently delighted in stirring up controversy, had unpredictably sided with Rasheeda. "Is Kirk really out here again making you look bad? Girl, I thought we moved past this." Scrappy, Kirk's close friend, had also been critical of him. "Bro," he said over the phone, shaking his head. "This is the mother of your children." Kirk had no defense. "Did you actually give the impression that she had abandoned you? It's bad, since it was the truth." They were all doing fine. One evening, Kirk found Rasheeda sitting in the nursery, rocking the baby in her arms. The soft glow of the nightlight created shadows on her face, making her look far more exhausted than she already was. He paused, standing at the doorway for a while. Finally, he asked, "May I enter?" She didn't answer, but she didn't tell him to leave either. That was enough. He walked in carefully and sat on the edge of the bed. For a while, they were quiet. The only sound in the room was the subtle creak of the rocking chair, and the calm breathing of the baby filled the space. At long last, Kirk sighed. Rasheeda kept looking at the baby. I don't even know where to start. Then don't. He inhaled deeply. Bitterly, she laughed and said, I need you to know how sorry I am. Sorry. Her voice was harsh and low. Kirk, are you even aware of what you did? In addition to hurting me, you also caused me to feel guilty. You let everyone think that I was unfaithful to you, and you let me cry myself to sleep every night because the man I love didn't trust me. Kirk closed his eyes, his conscience gnawing at him. Rasheeda, I was afraid. I allowed my fears to overcome me. And rather of speaking with you, He took deep breaths. Rasheeda gripped the baby tighter and shook her head. I made a mistake. Poor. It's more than simply you making a mistake, Kirk. He felt his heart constrict. It's because I'm not sure whether I'll ever be able to look at you the same way again. Rasheeda, please, she said as she got up and lifted the infant into the cot. Her eyes were glossy with unshed tears when she turned back to face him. I love you, Kirk, she whispered. It was like the floor had been torn out from under Kirk. But love ain't enough. Not anymore. Don't say that, Rasheeda. I need space. She wiped her face and inhaled deeply. Kirk's stomach fell when he said, I'm taking the baby to my mom's for a few days. Wait, what? She slung the diaper bag over her shoulder after grabbing it from the room's corner. I simply need time to breathe and ponder. Please, Rasheeda, he said, reaching for her hand, but she resisted. Let's talk. Don't go like this, Kirk. There's nothing else to say. She went past him, down the stairs, and out of the nursery. Kirk trailed behind, his throat clenched in desperation. She made one final spin back at the entrance. Kirk, you must discover who you are, and I must determine whether I can ever forgive you. She vanished after that. With each passing second, Kirk's chest tightened as he stood there and stared at the closed door. He had fought to maintain this marriage for years. Now, though, he wasn't sure if he had truly lost Rasheeda at this point. This scenario is quite complicated, everyone. Even though Kirk and Rasheeda have experienced everything, this could be the tipping moment. Can their marriage even withstand this degree of betrayal after everything? Is this the day Rasheeda leaves for good, or will she ever forgive Kirk? Not to mention the infant in the midst of it all. Will Kirk intervene and put things right, or is a whole new drama just waiting to happen? There is no doubt that this story is far from over, and you already know that there will be a lot of commentary about it on the internet. We would want to hear from you now. Do you believe Kirk is deserving of another opportunity? Is it time for Rasheeda to let go of him, or should she forgive him? We are aware that you all have opinions, so please share them in the comments section. Make sure you click the subscribe button and enable all alerts if you want to be informed of any updates on this crazy situation. I promise you won't want to miss anything that happens next. If you're as astonished by all of this drama as we are, don't forget to like this video. This is only the beginning of the narrative, so stay tuned.